this way. You say I make you nervous, a tragedy, I'm a beautiful disaster, a reckoning, you wonder this way. You think I'm someone to clean up and tame. Oh, some things never change, never change. Oh. You think I would look pretty on your arm once you cover up my bruises and battle scars, but it always ends the same. Can't bear the things I've had to face. Got you crying on your knees in pain. Oh, some things never change, never change. Oh, you'll break your back to make me feel again. Suffocate to make me breathe again. Lose your mind from endless pain. Some things never change, never change. Oh, redemption never came. I stopped asking for forgiveness, cause you should know only fools tread where the angels fear to go, but you keep trying to get too close. Save myself by turning into stone. So save your judgment cause you just don't know. But some things never change, never change. Oh, they say I should feel guilty and change my ways, leaving crumpled bodies in my wake. Swear I didn't mean to make them break. Swear I didn't mean to make them break. But they're so delicate and so mundane, and they keep coming like a moth to a flame. Oh, some things never change, never change. You'll break your back to make me feel again. Suffocate to make me breathe again. Lose your mind from endless pain. Some things never change, never change. Oh, redemption never came. You say I make you nervous, a tragedy, I'm a beautiful disaster, a reckoning, you wonder how I got this way. You think I'm someone to be saved, someone to clean up and tame. Oh, some things never change, never change. Oh. You think I would look pretty on your arm once you cover up my bruises and battle scars, but it always ends the same. Can't bear the things I've had to face. Got you crying on your knees in pain. Oh, some things never change, never change. Oh, you'll break your back to make me feel again. Suffocate to make me breathe again. Lose your mind from endless pain. Some things never change, never change. Oh, redemption never came. I stopped asking for forgiveness, cause you should know only fools tread where the angels fear to go, but you keep trying to get too close. Save myself by turning into stone. So save your judgment cause you just don't know. But some things never change, never change. Oh, they say I should feel guilty and change my ways, leaving crumpled bodies in my wake. Swear I didn't mean to make them break. Swear I didn't mean to make them break. But they're so delicate and so mundane, and they keep coming.
So, hello guys. Today we are going to book a very great book, Art of Attack by uh, Vladimir, and launched by Revenge's book. So,
Lose your mind from
let me stop this. Yeah. Uh, I will just open it. So this is a game, and you have to tell. I will ask you the question, and it is for white. This 93. 93 is a mistake. Because why to go outside a development? You can just do d3, bishop f4, and knight d2, something like that. Bishop g5 even, something like that. I'm just saying. E d5, knight d5, knight c2, castle, e4, cd4. Already white is in trouble because his king is in center. So this we should attack the king. cd4, bishop g5, f3, bf3, knight e3. This position is for black. Next position is for white. So here, what should white play here? Black play here. Sorry. Both pieces are attacked. You can just take, but not such great move. Yeah, knight d3 although winning, bishop e6 winning, but what is the first accurate move? Knight e3, b3, and knight b4, castle, knight c2. This is winning, but uh, white is able to do castle. In this thing, we should not able to uh, do castle for white and black if position depends. So queen f5. So bishop d2 means sorry, knight a3, bishop takes a5, and knight cross d1. So here it is winning like this, and queen e2 means same knight e3, and again it is winning, and knight g2, and queen a5, king f2 is force. Now knight to b4, knight d b4 is accurate. Knight c6 is doing very well there, so don't disturb there. Knight f5, queen f5. So king position is weak. King g3 is a mistake. Here king g1 will be okay. And if you play king f1, then queen b5, queen to b5. Although this position is winning, but not although sure. It is difficult too, but king g3 is simple. Knight d4, giving up a queen, but so many checks and there will be a mate. And black mates into wherever king go, king g4, king h3 mates are there. So king h3, knight f4, knight f2, sorry. This is not a mate because takes, so knight f2, that's why. And if you go knight f5, king g4, h5, king here, and bishop h6 mate. So this is another mate. Okay, next position. So I will just directly come to the position bishop e7. This is a mistake. Can you find why? You have to open up the king's file e5. So if you don't know, then pause the video and think, then only see the answer. Okay. e5, good move. b5. Here we will not take it again. We'll play rook e1, giving one more piece to attack. So knight g7, defend e5. So knight g5, attacking on f7, bishop e6, and here some moves are there. If you do castle, uh, castle, then white would have won the exchange and the pawn by queen h5. Queen h5 is winning. After queen h5, bishop f5, white may have no advantage. Bishop f7 in this position. After knight f7. Okay. So in this position, white has no advantage because of queen d4, and game over. Attacking both c4 and f2, and what the discoveries that do not help white. So that's why. So this is just a sample line. King h8, d5, and queen e4, rook e3, and queen g4. This is an unclear position. This position is unclear. But in the game he played bishop e6, which was a direct mistake because bishop e6, pawn e6, knight e6, queen to d6, knight g7, king f8. Actually, king is open, so that's why. So queen g4, bd4, knight e4, giving up a rook. If it takes, then there is mates are there because of checks, bishop h6, and like that. So sample line I will tell you. This is happening. Oh, sorry, bishop e1, and you can't take because of queen. So that's why. All the best move is here knight e6 direct winning the position. And knight e6 is a winning move here. Knight e6 only winning move. So knight e4. So here should play queen to g6 or queen g6 the only move to draw. Rook. So in the game he played queen e4 attacking both the rooks, a1 and e1. So bishop h6 connecting the rooks. If you take, then there is a mate, a mate in 12, because you can see easily because there are many checks in the position, so easy to find. So king e8, knight f6, attacking both of the knights. So knight g5. If king f6, then queen e6 and mate, and king f8 only move. Bishop a3, excellent move. If it takes, then there is a mate. Queen h5, queen e6, both are mate. So queen e6 more accurate. Why to give this bishop? Because you don't have any move, because both rooks are attacked, and if even rook hangs, then there is a mate. You can't play bishop d2 because of bishop f2, king f2, and this checks are there. So obviously white is better but not winning. In this version white is winning, clearly winning, bishop a3. So you don't have any option. If you move your queen, then queen f5 is there, queen e6, sorry, queen f5 is there. So takes queen e6. So mate in 4 are there. Knight d8 to defend. What is happening? Wait guys, 2 minutes. PC got hanged. That's why. 2 minutes guys. Mm, mm. Okay, knight d8 and queen is accurate. Stakes and there is mate. I hope you understand attacking feeling you have. So here this position is from the game Kotov versus Liniand in 1936 when these future grandmasters were playing in a first category tournament. Black to move directed the second and third action, so the drama as follows. Here black to play. What he will do? f4, knight f4, queen f2, king e3, queen d4, king d4, bishop c5, not e4, king d3, and knight e4, knight e5, and there is mate. Let me also close the position. I will also do with you only guys. Mm. what I'm doing. Wait guys, 2 minutes. Um, I'll just really can when you share the screen, that will be better. Yeah, I hope you can see my screen. You have seen this and I'll put the notation. Yeah, here it's white to play. Yes, I know this. White to play, what it will do guys. So here you guys, you can do, in my opinion, first move comes in my mind is knight f7. To take out king out. So that's why knight f7. Uh, Knight f7. King f7 is losing because of move. Knight 2 because of move queen to e6. If you take, then there is a mate. There is mate. And king f8 is met by knight to g5. So bishop d5, cd5, and you have to literally give away every piece. Okay. This is a simple line because giving every piece. Okay. So knight f7 in the game. What happened in the game? King e6 we have seen. King f8. Let's see. Now knight g5, same thing. Bishop d5. Yeah, we have seen this also. King e6 also we have seen. Now king g6 is made by, I think, knight to h5 is also. I'm just very curious. Is knight to h5 possible? Yeah, knight h4 all are mating moves. So in my opinion, knight h5 is more accurate for you and me because a check mate is there. So that's why knight h4, queen queen f5. You can take, and one more mission is there. Mate. Okay. In this position, I think black to play. Yeah, black to play. Mm, and win. I think Queen H3 is the move. Not sure although. Other moves comes in mind. Look at 6 to attack H3 pawn. Obvious. Knight to G1 force. Now sacrificial line comes. I think direct win is Queen H3 only. Yeah, Queen H3 is the only move. Check, check. King is coming to E6 and threatens some problems, so knight H. Knight to D7. Here, literally, you don't have enough, and you can just poke back, but that is also losing. Rook G5. I think this is only force in move variation. Rook G5. Rook F8. King G4. Now Bishop G. Knight F6. Bishop G5. King will. Bishop G5 is not good. Knight F6 check. King F5. Knight G8. King back check. 95. Here king can't run, so you have to go back. I can check to discover because black does not have a time, so that's why black is repeating. After 2 minutes, he will just change the bit. Bishop g5, see, and rook to f7. Many ideas are there like rook g7, rook f6, bishop h4, rook g6, king h5, and rook double. You can't play rook g1 also because of rook h6 mate, so bishop g5 falls. Rook g5 and knight f6, rook h5, unstoppable. Yeah, obviously this is force, and rook h6 is now unstoppable once again, and you don't have any counter source. Queen f5 is also on a mat by this, and once. White to play, please. White to play. Is that queen f8? My first preference queen f8 moves come. I don't know if it's correct or wrong. Okay guys, just give it 2 minutes, I will be right back. You have not seen the answer, yeah. Okay, let's see. Queen h3 is the correct answer. Okay, so same thing we did. Yeah, in this position, white to play. Yeah, guys, I'm back again. Sorry for the delay. Here you have found the answer. Great. Correct move. Rook g5 is the correct move. Takes. You can't take because of that rook. Rook f6. H4. Black to play.
To begin with, we are going to look at the Giacopiano, also known as the Italian defense, which is actually a very exciting start to this course because, so to speak, we are going to throw you in the deep end because this opening is actually a potential minefield for tactical tricks, opening traps and the likes. And so one has to be very careful, irrespective of which side of this opening you are on. So on that note, let's jump right in. So the Italian or Giacopiano occurs after knight e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop c4. And here black has bishop c5 and knight f6 being the two knights defense. d3. Also possible moves are here castles and knight c3. d5. ed5, knight d5, and castles. A very logical move, not only to secure the king, but to bring the rook to e1 and attack the e5 pawn. And in preparation for that, sometimes black makes a terrible mistake here. And when I say sometimes, I mean thousands of times this move was played. Bishop d6, which as much as it defends the e5 pawn, overprotects it in fact, it also disconnects the queen from guarding the knight on d5, and bishop takes d5, gives white right away a winning position. My 2 cents on this one is that usually if something doesn't hang, I tell my students don't defend it. And that's just textbook overprotecting something that didn't need to be defended. So, yeah, that particular mistake, as I said, was played more than 1,000 times. So that's a fairly impressive statistics, and the reason why we couldn't possibly leave this out of this course, despite of it being rather simpler. The next example, however, is going to be quite something. Same variation again, bishop c4, knight f6, d3, d5, ed5, knight d5, castles. And now black plays bishop g4, which is most definitely a far better move. It actually pins the knight as well, although one always has to be very careful when creating a pin with an unguarded piece. So the bishop on g4 is not protected, and this is always a source of tactical ideas that one day we might sack a queen and get something out of it. Rook e1 was played. Now the rook is also putting pressure on the e5 pawn and creating an annoying pin along the e file. And here, f6 is actually a really poor way to defend the pawn on e5. The correct move here would have been bishop e7, developing the bishop, and at the same time denying this pin on the e file. And f6 gets punished in an absolutely magnificent way that is very typical, again, of e4, e5 openings. The strike comes from the direction that you would expect it the least, and that is that this knight jumps onto e5. And once again, note the immense power behind the e-file pressure. If bishop takes d1, which was played, note that knight takes e5 actually does not defend the bishop, because after queen takes g4, said knight would still be pinned. A very important tactical concept. So knight e5, bishop d1, and tada, knight takes c6 comes with a discovered check and attacking the queen. And even if the queen goes here, we can just freely pick it off. Queen e7 was in fact played. Knight takes, bishop takes, and rook takes d1. And white emerges a pawn and a piece up from this absolutely beautiful fireworks. So keep in mind this idea. It happens a lot in e4, e5 openings, that when there is a pin on g4 bishop with a g4 bishop on the queen and the bishop is not guarded, that often becomes targets of tactics like this. So a really beautiful motive there by white, and once again try to remember it, because it's probably going to come back in your own games as well. Next, e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop c4, knight f6, d3, h6. A rather vanilla kind of move that is designed to prevent knight g5, but all developing moves by the bishop would have achieved the same by virtue of offering black the chance to castle in case of knight g5. So h6, c3, very logical. It's preparing for d4. Castles would have been also a nice move there. And d5. Now, these two moves very strongly contradict each other. And a lot of lower rated players don't understand this concept, although it's actually quite simple. So h6, for all intents and purposes, is a lemon. It's just a useless move that achieves nothing. It doesn't control center and it doesn't develop. And my personal mantra is that any opening move that does not develop or does not control the center, so one of these at least should be accomplished by your move, it's usually a waste of time. Textbook case is the bunny ears, h6 there. And now, after having done the bunny ears, black goes on the total reverse and initiates instant combat in the center. Now, usually these two things don't work too well together. ED, knight d5, and queen b3. Now we see another awesome benefit of the c3 move, and that is that we opened up this diagonal for the queen. Now, in this position, and in general, I really want you to remember this, that when you see this queen-bishop layout, your most dreaded response is this knight a5 move that hits both pieces like so. However, now we have queen a4 check, hitting knight, hitting queen, and it doesn't matter whether the knight goes back to c6 or the pawn goes up to c6 to defend the knight on a5. Either case, we can pick off the e5 pawn and punish black for this, very funny h6 and then d5 plan. So, after queen b3, they played bishop e6, which is actually a really, really bad move, far worse than knight a5 would have been, because not only does it give up the b7 pawn, that alone is never a good enough reason for black not to play bishop e6, because now I'm spending an awful lot of queen moves on just munching a pawn. And that's almost always a dangerous thing to do. But here, the problem is that when I take on b7, I'm hitting c6, and upon departure of the knight, we have got bishop b5 check. So that is actually something that had to be seen in advance. So knight a5, bishop b5 check. And now the problem is that there is no good way to block the check, because if black drops back to d7, this hangs. If I drop back the knight c6, the knight hangs. If I play bishop c6, pawn c6, then bishop takes c6 hangs. So there is something always in the way, and that means that black is in all kind of trouble. They played bishop d7, which instantly loses material, because after bishop takes, if queen takes, we take the rook. If king takes, we take the knight. It's very important to recognize that there are way too many loose pieces on the board, and white should be able to exploit it by tactical means. Takes, takes, and after queen takes a8, that's all she wrote. I really want you to remember this though. This kind of queen excursion with queen b3 and queen b7 needs to be considered very, very carefully. Because more often than not, this is a reason why we lose a game rather than win one. In this particular case, it works because the knight is loose and the bishop check is very deadly. But once again, be careful that you do check if it's worth grabbing that pawn, or actually we are going to get into tremendous trouble because of the several tempi we lose that we could spend on developing pieces. All right, next. Still sticking with the d3 theme, h6 still, castles, and d5 still. So again, the same false concept that we don't develop, then we open up the board and initiate fight. Never a good idea. Takes, takes, rook e1, and now actually we see again the issue that we saw in the very first example. Here now e5 is genuinely under attack, and in fact it is very awkward to defend, and bishop d6 was played here several hundred times. And again, of course, the punishment is that we pick off the knight on d5 and white is easily winning. For the record, there is not a lot of good ways to defend the pawn. In fact, if you ask the engine already gives up the pawn and recommends moves like bishop e6. just to focus on accelerating the lagging development on the black side. I could play f6, but that would be incredibly ugly, making this diagonal incredibly weak, and also offering me d4, de, so it doesn't even fulfill the purpose it was played for. So again, that's just a typical mistake to play here, h6 and then d5, and again, black got punished very severely for it. Next, still with the Italian, but now we are moving on to d4 instead of d3. d4, this is an entirely different story. A very aggressive move that challenges the center right away. The best response, by the way, is to take this. And when white plays e5, and I really want you to remember this, because this is not a motif that is applicable to this position. It's a motif that jumps up in about 20, at least 20 different openings. This motif, that when there is a bishop here and they attack your knight here, you play d5 instead of moving the knight, counterpunching here. And it works the other way around too, by the way. So if there is a knight here that gets attacked and the white bishop is here, then e5 is also... So the inverse of the same motif works. It's a very common motif. Very, very common motif. And this is actually the move that not only saves black, but actually gives him a slightly preferable position. Now, instead, here they played bishop e7, which is just an awful mistake that allows white to grab the pawn. And the issue here is not only the fact that the pawn is gone, but the fact that now this knight is loose, f7 is already under attack, and the combined attack on these two sweet spots means that black is just dead. In order to avoid getting mated, they have to castle. The actual line goes with knight g4. So knight e4, queen d5, castles, queen e4 is just all over. And so in our example, they actually go to g4 to try to attack the e5 pawn. But again, queen d5 is a beautiful move to defend and attack. And after castles, we kick the knight out immediately. And so now after knight h6, we can take it anytime we please. But the calm knight c3 developing is just as good, and white is essentially totally winning. So what happened here again? We played d4, and when black ignored the threat on the e5 pawn, we just took it and went on to win easily. Okay, next, we are still with the d4 idea. Bishop b4 check is a very bad move here. And in fact, in general, in most openings, a lot of beginners and lower rated amateurs like to chuck in this check, thinking that it's going to accelerate their development, because if now I block, then they can take, I take back with whatever, and they can castle. But they almost always disregard the fact that I can actually block this check, hitting the bishop, which has to go now, and then white gets to develop another piece. The real problem here is that now we have got two different pieces under attack, for which reason bishop d6 is the only reasonable move to offer for black, but that's just ugly as sin, because now the d pawn is blocked, and so this bishop cannot naturally develop in the next fair few moves. Instead, bishop a5 is our example, which ignores the fact that the pawn is hanging, and now we are entering a very similar territory to the previous game. Bishop g5, even stronger than queen d5 was in the previous case, because now the bishop can no longer come back to defend this. f6, meaning that now black can't castle anymore. Very important, takes, pawn takes back. Knight takes here, loses to e5. And then the pin on the knight creates an even larger problem. Hence pawn takes, bishop h4, retaining the attack on the f6 pawn, gluing the knight to g4, not looking good. According to the engine, white is already totally winning, and I, of course, couldn't agree more. Queen d5 is coming, h3 is coming. It's just black's position is a mess, and on top of that, they are even down in material. So that's another motif that is very important to remember, that these early check shenanigans, more often than not, tend to backfire really, really badly, especially if they are blockable with a pawn move that attacks the piece that delivers the check. Next example. Knight f6, d4, knight takes d4. This is a very interesting idea. They obviously want to trade everything, but taking first with the knight instead of taking with the pawn has a ginormous issue with it. So the clever concept is that the reason why black would take like so is because they want to avoid e5, which is fundamentally wrong for two reasons. A, because they have no reason to avoid e5, and that's the first very important reason actually. But second, because it loses to a beautiful tactical trick. Check this out. Check. Check. And take the knight now. And in this mini skirmish, we actually managed to win an extra pawn, and the king can't castle anymore. In the example, the king goes back to g8, and after queen d4, again, the story is the same. We are a pawn up, and the black king is somewhat insecure. Very cute trick, actually. I quite liked it. Okay, bishop c4, knight f6, d4, d6. Another poor move, which we can respond to in multiple ways that are really, really good. d5 is a very logical way to engage, and after d, simply take the queen, forcing the king to take, because upon knight capture, e5 drops. King takes, bishop takes f7. Knight g5 is also a move here. I would like to show you that, defending and attacking. Knight d8, knight e5, knight e4 is possible. And in this case, after castles followed by rook e1, white would still retain an edge, but black has some chances to actually stay alive. Instead, however, king d8 was not pretty at all. Bishop takes, knight e4, bishop d5, a very important move, hitting both knights at the same time. And the reason why it's important, you might say that, wait, but c6 is guarded. Yes, the idea though is that once we eliminate c6, e5 is going to drop. So now bishop f5 was played, bishop takes, pawn takes, and after knight takes e5, white has a beautiful endgame with an extra pawn and a badly damaged black pawn structure on the queen side. Still carrying on with knight f6, d4. Knight takes e4 is another bad move here. Now we have got d5, and in strong contrast to ed e5 d5, if you compare this, which is correct for black, to the game, now after d5 they can't play d5 because they simply pick it off. Queen d5, and black is simply a pawn down. So d6 was played, but this is also a blunder, and it's a trick that I really want you to remember. And in fact, there is a trick to the trick, so it's a double-layered story. First and foremost, anytime there is a knight on e4, you technically should have this, and picking off the knight, which is the best move here, by the way. But you should always look out if you can get even more by actually setting up the mate threat and hitting the knight. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. You definitely have to check, because this never does more, as in bishop takes f7, then win a pawn and decline the castling rights. And then the instant queen d5, in contrast, very often does bring a lot more than that. Not this case, though, because here bishop e6, queen e4, and d5 would entirely turn the tables, and therefore we should stick with bishop takes f7, check, pick off e4, and after castles, enjoy the position once again with an extra pawn and a safer king. One more game with knight e4, bishop c4, d4, knight e4, de, bishop c5, and now queen d5. Once again, this is exactly what I told you. Check which one is better. Because bishop f7 totally does work. King takes, check, king back and takes on e4. It does work, but it always yields you no more than a pawn. So let's have a look again what happens after queen d5. And now, because of the d pawn hasn't moved yet, the trick that we did before with bishop e6 and then d5 doesn't work at all. And consequently now, after bishop takes f2 check, king e2, black is going to lose the e4 knight, as he now must castle to prevent the mate. Queen takes e4, and yeah, we are just winning. But there is one more thing that I need to show you here, which is quite a cute trick, d5. And you can take it with either pieces. It's totally fine. So queen takes d5 wins, bishop d5 wins. Ed, however, is less accurate because after rook e8, we have got some issues on the e-file with our queen. So just simply take with the queen or bishop, it doesn't really matter, and we will be absolutely sweet. Another lovely way to win a quick game with the Italian. Okay. And that actually sort of concludes our tricks for white with d4. And now we are going to move on to the two knights. And boy, that is going to be a spectacular show of tricks. Although, for the most part, depending on which variation, it could be a tremendously great opening for black. But let's just go one by one, because as you can see, there are many, many ways to go wrong. Obviously, knight g5 is intending to take on f7 and forking queen rook, and h6 just falls for it. So now we're done dusted with the basic motif. Let's move on to a little bit more serious moves. Incidentally, queen e7 is a somewhat known move here. The idea is that if you take with the knight, they have got d5, but even this is not quite good, with the idea that if knight takes, then dc4, and this knight is going to be trapped in here, which is true. But there's nothing wrong here with bishop takes f7. In fact, it's a perfect move. King d8, bishop b3, and white is just winning extra pawn, and the black king is already stuck in the middle. So don't do it, folks. Knight g5 still on the menu. Knight takes e4. Now this is trying to be cute in case we take e4, d5 fork. Another motive that I really want you to keep in mind, because it occurs a lot in e4, e5 openings. But of course, we will take f7. Thank you very much. Note that knight takes here, forking these two guys, is not really good because of queen h4. And all of a sudden it's black threatening with a mate on f2. And castles bishop c5 seems to just add even more heat to this threat. And to just model it to you, checkmates like this are not good to fall for. So be very careful. Greed is never a good advisor in chess. Take with the bishop, it forces the king up. Yes, we do not win an exchange, but instead now the king is blocking the queen's way. The king can't castle. It's all kinds of awkward issues for black. And on top of that, now we have this fabulous d4 move. Absolutely lovely. Again, developing punching in the center instead of, for example, taking the knight, allowing the bishop to be dropped. Note that knight takes loses to bishop takes, skewering king and queen. And after h6 now we take, they take, and we push past, and white is a pawn. I thought we were a pawn up, but we're not. But we will be. Check this out. Actually, I thought that we would go queen check and take, but even better is d6. And I suppose if the knight had gone elsewhere, then we would go check. So my pawn up comment may be correct. But actually, probably after knight b8, I would just play castles here and go f4 and attack this king stuck in the middle like there was no tomorrow. Knight e7, d6, and black is in all sorts of